These two guys have Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
Kirk Cousins is your quarterback?
Kirk is our quarterback. I'm excited about that. I'm excited about building an offense for him. Obviously have some experience with him. I think he's a really good player in my mind for a lot of reasons. But the one thing is, I think he's an elite passer. I think he throws the football at a really high level, and he's always been like that. And being a naturally accurate quarterback is something that I feel is the number one requirement for playing in this league, especially with the playmakers we have. Excited about Kirk Cousins.
Oh, welcome into Reckless Speculation Thursday. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for a scoop session with our guy Darren Doogie Wolfson, Channel 5 Eyewitness News, and also the Scoop Podcast. Of course, you can find that. Score North, Zolgad, Doogie, executive producer, co-host Declan Goff, Mackey out until Monday. And so, Doogs, let's rip the Band-Aid off and let's get right to it. It's Combine Week. I love it. It is reckless speculation at its finest. And let's start there. Kevin O'Connell. Okay, he's been pinned down every which way to Thursday about, hey, who's your quarterback? Is Kirk your quarterback? And he's given varying answers in my degree, or in my estimation, as has Kwesi about that. What are you hearing, and what do we know as the Vikings get set to return here from the Combine, and they've done all their public speaking about their quarterback situation, which I think we should be very clear here. It is front of mind because of his contract. So like, I think people think we're just like, oh, you keep talking about Kirk. Who cares about Kirk? His contract is going to define a lot of the next couple years for this franchise.
Without the contract, Judd, we would not be having these conversations. If the contract wasn't what it is, with a $45 million cap hit, $35 million in real money, entering the final year of his deal, maybe we'd bring it up, but it wouldn't be the lead item here on Reckless Speculation Thursday. It's good to be back with you guys. Thanks for covering for me on Tuesday. I don't know what the heck hit me. I'm pretty sure it wasn't the bubonic plague, but like my ass has been kicked for days. I'm still like 50%, 60%. I'm
still pretty
up.
good.
So who the heck knows what the heck?
The drugs are working.
The next 20 minutes. Yeah, the drugs are working. So that's good. So Judd, I'm led to believe that there was another conversation, Cousins' representation, the Vikings, last night in Indianapolis. They first connected a couple weeks ago at the Omni Hotel here in the Twin Cities by the Vikings practice facility. I don't know why they didn't go to Manny's, but they didn't. Heck, if I were Mike McCartney, if I were Kirk's representation, I would have been all about just having this meeting in Indianapolis. Let's go to, the steakhouse there, St. Elmo's. Let's just, break bread at one of the great steakhouses in the country. But I'm led to believe there was another conversation Wednesday night, but that they initially met a couple weeks ago in Eagan. So there is a relationship being built. I've been saying for a long time, Judd, I still have a firm belief that Kirk Cousins is not willing to take a pay cut. Certainly not any sort of significant pay cut. Mm-hmm. So that's the conundrum that the Vikings are facing. I think in an ideal world, that soundbite that Declan played leading into this segment, Kevin O'Connell on with Tom Pelissero on NFL Network, Andrew Siciliano, I think Kevin would have Kirk as his quarterback this year. That going back to the Zoom interview, that initial Zoom interview a number of weeks ago, then the in-person interview in Los Angeles that Kevin O'Connell sold to the Vikings that, hey, I like Kirk. We have a standing relationship from our time together in Washington. Kirk, my understanding is, went to bat with some Vikings officials during the process saying, hey, Kevin is a rising star. You guys would be wise to hire Kevin. That in a perfect world, this marriage continues. But the Vikings need to do something with that contract as they sit here at 12 to 15 to 16 million, depending on, how you look at it. They are many millions of dollars over the cap. I don't have the exact number, Judd. Maybe you have a better understanding if it's closer to 11 or 12 or closer to 15 or 16, but it's in that ballpark of the many millions of dollars the Vikings are currently over the salary cap. So they need to do something. I do foresee an Adam Thielen restructure coming. That will be one way to create some space. They can do some stuff with the Harrison Smith contract. I know that his camp was set to connect with the Vikings here at some point, either today, tomorrow, Saturday, along with the Thielen camp. They will connect with the Vikings front office here either today, tomorrow, maybe more likely tomorrow or Saturday, maybe even into Sunday. But like, something still needs to occur with that Cousins contract. I have a hard time believing that they will just ride this thing out this year. But the Vikings are not willing to pay him $40 to $45 million a year on a contract extension. Until I hear otherwise, Judd, I just don't see the Vikings willing to do that. So what is a fair offer from the Vikings? What is a legit offer that Kirk says, you know what, okay, I am willing to accept that? I don't think it's anything less than $30 to $35 million a year. I think it's higher than that. I really do.
I think it's 40. I think it's 40 to I think it is now, Dukes, 40 to probably 45. And it's interesting. So in his comments at the Combine on Tuesday, Kwesi left himself some serious room here to go back and say, well, I didn't say that, because both Kwesi and O'Connell have talked about, we're excited about Kirk. Kirk can do, a lot of things well, and that's fine. But among the things that Adolfo Mensa said on Tuesday was, in talking about Kirk, everything's in play, and essentially the Vikings will do what's best for the Vikings, and Kirk will do what's best for Kirk, which is a clear indication of, hey, we've talked and we don't necessarily agree on contract terms. And so I think right now, Dukes, I think the most likely scenario is the Vikings are going to put a year on Kirk's contract that is voidable, so it won't be played out, shift some of the salary cap space from 2022 to 23 when Kirk won't be here, and essentially say, go play. So that's my guess. But I think that what you're saying is right. It feels like internally that Kwesi and O'Connell and probably the Wilfs have picked a figure on Kirk, a price point that they'll go to, and that's it. And I have a feeling that the Mike McCartney and Kirk have picked a price point, and I don't know that they're going to be close enough to reach a deal that would allow for a extension of Kirk's contract that would be, say, 3 more years.
Well, I mean, look at the history of Kirk and his agent, Mike. The way that they have played this thing out, I would argue brilliantly. I don't know if there is a counter argument. Like, I think it's been very, very well played by Mike, by Kirk, going back to his time in Washington. Then when he hit the free agent market, sure, the Jets offered him more money, but still to get that guaranteed money, the first player in NFL history to sign a contract like that when he came here, 3 years, $84 million. Then to get the extension, well played, well timed, after the playoff win that season, the win in New Orleans. So, yeah, like, history suggests they're not willing to take a step backwards. Plus, there's always pressure from the Players Association. You will see some other players, possibly Derek Carr, some others, sign extensions where you can argue that Cousins, now some listeners, some viewers may not agree with this, but if you're Mike, you can argue that Kirk is right there with a guy like Derek Carr. Right? And so if the Raiders are about to give Carr $40-something million a year, why, if you're Cousins, would you take way less than that? Maybe you would take a little less than that, Judd, but why would you take 33 or 34 million? Like, if Derek Carr is getting $40 million a year, Kirk Cousins is going to fight for $40 million a year.
Dukes, percent chance, and I think I know it, but percent chance that eventually after these negotiations, that Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell are sitting down with Kirk and his representation and eventually say to Kirk, this is what we can give you. We can give you extension in the AAV range of $25 to $30 million. What is the percent chance that Kirk Cousins camp says, all right, fine, I want to stay here. This is my best chance to win. I'm familiar with the offense. I like all the weapons. What is the percent chance that if Kwesi and KLC are able to convince him to come down significantly from that number, that he eventually signs up for that type of extension?
Yeah, I have a hard time seeing that, Declan. I mean, if you want a number, to me, it's less than 25%. I mean, maybe it's closer to 15%. I'm not saying it's 0%, but Like, until I see evidence to suggest otherwise, Declan, it's a really low number. And if you're Kirk, like, as much as you love the idea of playing for O'Connell, heck, there are a bunch of coaches that like Kirk, that he could feel like if he hits the open market 1 year from now, that there would be a pretty nice opportunity elsewhere, right? We still don't even know what the heck is taking place in San Francisco. Yeah, they've invested a good amount in Trey Lance, but like, do we know at this point that Trey Lance is for sure the long-term answer in San Francisco?
They love him, dude.
Kyle Shanahan loves Cousins.
John Lynch says they loved a Trey Lance. You wouldn't believe how mature he's become, Dukes.
Yeah, and hey, they invested a lot when you take a quarterback number 3 overall. I understand that, but we know the sort of love affair that exists. Kyle Shanahan, Kirk Cousins. I'm just saying that would be one that would jump out to me, but there would be others that if you're Kirk, hitting the open market 1 year from now is not the worst thing in the world.
And that actually, guys, might be good for both sides. Because if Kirk is here for 2022, it gives the Vikings then time to sort of decide and chart their path at quarterback, right? So, like, if they could draft one this year or pass and draft one in what's supposed to be, Doogie, a stronger quarterback class in 23. My point being is it might not be the worst thing in the world to bite the bullet, give Kirk the extension of a year that he will then count against their cap, but not be here in 23, and allow O'Connell and Kwesi to sort of chart their path at the position. So, like, in some ways, I don't love that, but I don't hate that. And I think right now, as we discuss this, that is a lot more likely scenario to play out than it is for Kirk to come back in and say, oh, you know what, I'll take less. I don't see that. I don't think it takes place. And with the way that position right now is paid so ridiculously in this league by some teams, Kirk, banking on Kirk, will probably, once again, for the third time at least, work for Kirk Cousins. It just probably won't be here.
Yeah, I think that's, very logical the way you laid that out, Judd. When you say you don't like, but you don't hate, like, to me, the hate scenario is you pay him what he wants, right? You extend him multiple years
I can't do that.
$40 million plus a year, right? And I'm not suggesting you can't win with Kirk. I think you can. But the issue always has been how much you're paying him, right? That he can't eat up 22% of your salary cap. You can't put a good enough roster around him. So that, to me, is the hate scenario. If the Vikings ultimately decide, okay, we can't do any better than Kirk, let's just pay him $42 million a year on an extension. Like, to me, that's the hate scenario. But yeah, I mean, I think what you laid out with the void year, play this thing out. Heck, they've met with some quarterbacks this week. I know they met with the Pittsburgh quarterback Pickett. Maybe they end up taking a quarterback relatively high. I mean, that to me is the pathway, right, Judd, where, you have a pretty good quarterback on a rookie deal, right? I mean, that to me
yes, that's how you win.
Best opportunity. I'm not breaking news suggesting that. I mean, that gives you the best chance. So they are doing their due diligence. I mean, they spent a good amount of time in Mobile with all the top quarterbacks. They're spending time this week. You only get, 45 formal interviews total in Indianapolis. So, they ended up using at least a couple of those on quarterbacks. Yeah, I know. Only 45.
That's enough for me, Dukes.
Yeah, although there's 400 players there. So
yeah, I don't need to talk to most.
You pick and choose, and you put some requests in, and not every request is met, right? Like, sometimes you get turned down just because a certain player gets so many requests. He's not doing 28 formal interviews. But the Vikings did have an opportunity earlier this week to spend some time with some quarterbacks, including, I'm told, Kenny Pickett, who some people believe is the best quarterback in this draft class, whether it's him or Malik Willis. I know they spent a good amount of time with Willis in Mobile. I haven't heard if they got a formal interview with him in Indianapolis. I'll continue to work on that. But yeah, like, I know some people are like, why do you guys keep talking about the Cousins situation? It's because it's a thing. Like, his agent is meeting with the Vikings multiple times. It
drives everything. Yes.
It does. It starts with that, and then everything feeds off of that. So, yes. Like, I don't think we can talk about the situation enough. I really don't. Like, we could do an entire Reckless Speculation Thursday podcast on the Kirk Cousins situation. But, like, nothing is finalized. We'll advance as we hear stuff, told that there was another meeting in Indianapolis, but it's not like there's any closure quite yet. Mm-hmm. I may end up ultimately being wrong, right? I went on the record on January 16th or 17th, can't remember if it was on this podcast, definitely did it on Channel 5, that my money was on a trade. At this point, it doesn't look like a trade is going to happen, right? But I was reading some of the tea leaves with some of the people still in place, some of the factors with last year and, missing the playoffs multiple years in a row, his reluctance to get the vaccine, all sorts of different things, thinking, like, now is the time to hit the reset button with a new regime in place, at least a new GM, new coach, new GM gets a 4-year deal, new coach gets at least a 4-year deal, maybe a 5-year deal or a 4-year deal with some sort of vesting option for that 5th year. But, like, I thought now was the time, right? So I was reading the tea leaves to some extent, but, I may end up being ultimately wrong that what you said will end up playing out, that Kirk Cousins is this team's quarterback this year. They had that void year, but he's going to hit the market 1 year from now.
Reckless speculation.
Little reckless speculation for you, Dukes, here from NFL.com. I believe it's Nick Shook. He did a piece on free agent fits, one free agent fit for every team in the NFL. And he has Emmanual Ogbah signing with the Vikings. He says, let's replace one former Brown in Sheldon Richardson, who returned to Minnesota on a 1-year deal last year, with another in Ogbah, whose incredibly steady play in recent years has flown under the radar. Ogbah would provide the kind of consistent edge rushing contribution the Vikings haven't enjoyed since the heydays of Griffin and Danielle Hunter, and signing him likely won't break the bank.
Reckless speculation.
So, Dukes, I don't know what a contract could be for Ogbah. He has 18 sacks the last 2 years. He's been a pretty good player for the Dolphins, was once, a good player with Cleveland. What are the thoughts of the Vikings potentially finding another defensive end to potentially pair with Danielle Hunter when free agency opens here in a few weeks?
Well, that's presuming that Danielle Hunter is here, right, Declan? Mm-hmm. So that's the number 2 elephant in the room, that there are conversations being had in Indianapolis. Hunter's representation with the Vikings. Judd, I don't know how that one is going to play out. I'm not quite sure the Vikings know how that one is going to play out. But Declan, the idea of pairing, whether it's Ogbah or some other pass rusher, yes, it is a need. I know the Vikings had a lot of sacks last year, but yes, that is a need. That is an interesting name. So I will mark that down as a name to keep an eye on. But I'll transition more to the Hunter situation, that something needs to play out there. Now, they can transfer that roster bonus into a signing bonus, spread that out. So there is a logical way to create some cap space that way, Judd.
Yep.
But I still think something needs to take place there. Now, I did check with a front office higher up who has a clear need for a pass rusher. I said, is your understanding that Hunter is available via trade? He said, we have not had any conversations with the Vikings in that regard. So for what that's worth, that was one front office, clear need for a pass rusher. He said he has not talked to the Vikings about any sort of Danielle Hunter trade.
So the path that Dex just explored, though, is an interesting one, because the Vikings have, no question, right now a need at defensive end for a guy who can rush the quarterback. They've got a need, in my opinion, a big one at either right guard or center, no matter what Kevin O'Connell says about Garrett Bradbury going to Canton someday. And they've got a need at cornerback, or actually multiple needs. But in order to, so I'm sure they'll draft one at a position, but all of that being said, we're starting to talk about, well, who can they go out, right, Dukes, and sign off the open market? And the question then becomes, okay, that's a great conversation. Reckless speculation encouraged. That being said, the reckless speculation is who's going to go? Because right now I feel like the conversations are, well, if they restructure this guy and then they're going to and so they're all coming back, right? No. Some people will be restructured, deals will be redone, but I got bad news, folks. Some guys are going to be gone. They need to be gone. Like, you can't just be like, well, we got Thielen done, and then we got Hunter done, and Harrison Smith, he's back too. Okay, if you want to sign people off the market, guess what? You have to just flat out create cap room by replacing body with body. So my point is, this is where reckless speculation meets reality speculation. And the reality is these guys are here to turn over a portion of the roster. Do I believe that they want Danielle Hunter back? Absolutely. He's a great player. Do I believe that they basically look at what is growing into a group of geriatric football players and be like, I want all those old guys back too? Absolutely not. And so, like, this is the next path of how is it going to play out? And don't be surprised if a major name or two is gone completely, not restructured.
Well, the one at the top of that list is Michael Pierce. As of Tuesday, his representation had not connected with the Vikings in Indianapolis, but that was earlier this week. I'll try to follow up on that. There is going to be a conversation to be had on Pierce. Really good player when available, but sat out the 2020 season, missed a good chunk or a relatively good chunk of the 2021 season because of injury, entering the final year of his deal. So, in terms of dead money, the Vikings can get out from underneath that contract very easily. So I would keep an eye on Michael Pierce. You have Armon Watts. You have Tomlinson still under contract. You've got some depth there. I would keep an eye on Pierce before anybody else. And, when I suggest an Adam Thielen restructure, what that means is I foresee him taking a pay cut.
Right. So
he wants to be here.
It's a new contract.
It would be a new contract. So I say
not a restructure. Right.
I
said the same thing.
What you said. Yeah. We're getting into the minutia of some of the terminology, but yeah, essentially it is. It's a new contract. So they would rip it up and redo. But I think Thielen is here, that he wants to be here, that he's willing to take some sort of cut. So, like, those would be two I'd keep an eye on. Pierce, gone. Thielen, back, but with a new contract.
Scoops from our guy Dukes on a Reckless Speculation Thursday. And before we turn the page to Wolves speculation, you know what, Dex? Do you know what's not speculation? What's not speculation is the magic of wearing Chill Boys, long johns, and boxers. That's not reckless. It's not speculation. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you right now, it's proven fact. Correct, Declan Goff?
Yes, you have to restructure your undergarments. Go and restructure your Chill Boys
brand. And once
brand.
you do, you're set for life.
Exactly.
Lifetime contract with Chill Boys right now.
Performance and bamboo fabric. It doesn't matter which avenue you want to go down in your negotiations. But I can tell you right now, restructure your underwear. Chill Boys, it's a Minnesota-based company, and it will change your opinion on how things feel down there.
Chillboys.com. All right, Dukes, what can you tell us about the status of Ant Edwards' knee and the fact that he did not play against Golden State in the Wolves win a couple of nights ago, and it's very clear that knee now is impacting his play.
Yeah, and here is the text message. I was queuing it up. Tuesday night, right before tip-off, somebody close to Ant, gonna rest and reevaluate in a couple days. So they'll reevaluate later today. The Wolves back in action, tomorrow night against Oklahoma City. Presumably one of those games that if he sits out, you can still win it. You have Portland, a couple times on the schedule coming up. Those are pretty, at least on paper, easy games. You would think easy games, although, heck, Oklahoma City beat Denver last night. Denver finally lost. When thinking about maybe can the Wolves jump up and get that 6th seed, I still think it's a long shot. But Denver somehow lost. They could not make a three-pointer last night. That shocked me that the Nuggets lost to the Thunder, but
crazy league, Doogie.
Beat the Thunder. They should beat the Blazers. So I would not be surprised if he sits a little bit longer. But we'll know later today that later today was going to be the evaluation. The Wolves are on the practice court right now. They have media availability in about an hour. So I did not text with anybody this morning to see if if Ant is practicing. But I would not be surprised if it's a little bit longer. Clearly, it's an issue.
Here's my dilemma there. So this is a league where guys rest way too much, right? We're going to give them the night off, and then we're going to give them another night off. And it's like, oh, come on. That being said, I give Ant a ton of credit because I think he goes in the opposite direction of I'm going to play. And it actually and it actually hurts him at times. I would prefer to see him take a week and get well because the guy who was trying to play through it last week was a shell offensively of what he should be.
Well, yeah, and now maybe it's because the knee is bothering him. They really haven't run a whole lot of plays for him, a whole lot of actions for him. But like he gets dinged up in the Charlotte game, then he should have sat out that Toronto game, but he fought to play. It was his decision.
Yes.
There were people close to him saying, Ant, sit out that game. That was February 15th. They were like, Ant, don't play. He said, no, I'm playing. Then he took part in Cleveland. Now that wasn't, over excruciating, but you could have made a case, just don't even do anything in Cleveland All-Star weekend. That would have been an opportunity to get legit rest. But he said, hey, it's All-Star weekend. Like, I need to be out there. I'm not going to
Are you suggesting that they should have kept him here? Because yes, amen, Doogie. Yes, All-Star game, don't care. Skills, crap, don't care. I'm with you.
Well, yes, but it's not like it's just them.
I know.
This is me because I've got a lot of money on the line, but Darius Garland is one of my great fantasy players. He takes part in All-Star weekend, the skills competition. Then he misses a couple games coming out of the All-Star break with a back issue. And he's been dealing with a back issue for a while. And it's like, and I get it. It was in Cleveland. He's a star for the Cavs. I understand that. But it's like, come on, Darius. Like, you guys are fighting for a top 4 seed, home court in the first round. Like, that means more than All-Star weekend. But, yeah, these guys just can't help themselves. But, yeah, Judd, I think I wouldn't be surprised if it's a little bit longer. But just do know if, Ant can, win over some people, he'll say, yeah, put me out there. I'll be fine. 20 years old, I'll fight through it. Going back to my AAU days, we'd play, 6-7 games over a course of 2 days. I'm in phenomenal shape, although I think he can be in better shape. But this is him thinking, hey, I can get out there. I'll be fine. No problem.
Dukes, I saw that Leandro Bolmaro is back in, obviously, the G League here. In his last 4 games, not too bad. 20 points, 17 points, 15 points, 14 points. Still kind of bombing those three-pointers. He's yet to really find his shot from behind the arc. Do you see any situation where he eventually gets called up for a playoff run or even finds a way to crack this rotation eventually? Or is this just a guy who's going to be a project for a while and maybe by next season he can eventually start cracking Chris Finch's rotation?
Yeah, the latter, Declan, not this year. Yeah, I mean, he's not going to be a factor this year for the Wolves. I'm glad he's getting some run in the G League, even though, yeah, the shot needs work. But statistically speaking, you look at a lot of his line scores. I mean, he is dominating the G League, but he needs to get some run in. So keep him down there, especially with McKinley Wright sidelined still for a bit longer. The Iowa Wolves can use a guard. So I'm glad that he's getting run there. But yeah, I mean, best case scenario next year. Like Jalen Noel can barely crack the rotation. Jalen Noel plays the other night because Anthony Edwards was out. Jalen Noel is a really good player, yet he's had some DNP CDs recently. Jordan McLaughlin, for a while earlier this season wasn't playing. Now he's part of the rotation, but I'm telling you, no, there is not a scenario where Leandro Bolmaro is making any sort of impact come April, and if they advance, past the play-in tournament, into a playoff series, I don't see it. And hey, maybe they still find a way to avoid the play-in, but like, I think that's a huge mountain to climb. Like, I think they're going to end up as the 7th seed, maybe the 8th seed, that I think they're going to be in the play-in tournament.
Final scoop, sir. The floor is yours again.
Eric Curry's shoulder injury. I don't know if Ben Johnson mentioned that post-game last night. Eric Curry did not play in the loss at Maryland last night. I get it. People are tuning out. I completely understand. Sorry. Jamison Battle put on a special performance last night, though. 39 points.
Yes,
thankfully, he has eligibility remaining multiple years, so he will be back next year. He will be the face of the Gophers.
What's he going to be, 42 and playing
year.
like Curry was?
Hey, I'll take it. Eric Curry has another year of eligibility. I've told Ben.
He does?
Yes, I've told Ben, find a way to talk Eric into playing next year.
He's my age.
I know. It's amazing. But he has another year of eligibility. But
Class of 88, baby.
All signs point to Eric Curry not playing next year. They did honor him the other night, senior night. Yeah, I was over at Benilde a couple weeks ago. I was looking for your picture. I couldn't find it. How about Benilde getting their butt kicked last night by Edina?
Yeah, cake eaters. Cake eaters broke my heart in Tonka growing up, and now they break my heart again. The fact that Benilde is playing Edina in a section final to this day just astounds me. We were such garbage in hockey. It was unbelievable, and they've been great now for a long time.
Ollie's done an unbelievable job there. Benilde was the 1 seed. Correct me if I'm wrong. Edina was the 2 seed.
I think that's correct.
Technically speaking, seed-wise, it was an upset last night. Edina beats Benilde in Bloomington. Bloomington Ice Garden. But so Curry has another year, but I think this is it. One Twins note, Joan Duran, good pitching prospect, missed a good chunk of last year, elbow injury. So he's on the 40-man. So he's in that boat of guys being screwed right now because he can't be in Fort Myers. The Twins were very strategic about this. The day before the lockout ended, they had him in Fort Myers throw like 4 innings, and he looked great. So they know that he's in really good shape right now.
All right, sir. Thanks much. And you gutted it out, and we appreciate that.
The Jordan flu game, Dukes.
Appreciate it, boys.
Good too, Dukes.
Yeah, I'll get in there. I'll be all right. Thanks,
good
boys.
stuff. All right, take care.
Okay.
That's
I don't know if it was good, but thank you.
It was great. No, it was really good.
Okay. All right, good.